For those of you not familiar with CEED, it is the Center for Entrepreneurship Education and Development. We are a nonprofit organization that offers a wide variety of programs and funding that supports local entrepreneurs. I would like to extend an enormous thank you to Gina Martin from Diverse Abilities Programs and Training for being here with us today. Having over 4 decades of lived experience with multiple disabilities, Gina knows firsthand the barriers that many living with disabilities face, both in the built environment and especially with social attitudes surrounding disability and disability-related topics. As an EDI consultant, Gina guides and teaches individuals and teams easy, practical, and respectful ways to communicate with, interact with, and assist people who navigate life differently. Knowing what to say and do when communicating with, interacting with, and assisting people living with disabilities creates inclusion. When we feel comfortable and confident in our understanding about what disabilities are and what they are not, then anyone who comes through the door feels welcome. Without further ado, I'll now hand it off to Gina Martin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'd like to start off with a prayer that I say every single morning. And it's, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I'd also like to acknowledge the land in which I am on, which is the unceded and unsurrendered lands of the Songhees, Esquimalt, and the Wasanic nations. So I am Gina Martin. I am the founder and the DEI of Diverse Abilities. And I created this business to bring awareness to society. We've spent a lot of time teaching people how to, quote, fit in to society who have disabilities. But until society understands and can recognize how to interact, communicate, and assist, we'll never have the inclusion that we talk about. So my journey with disabilities is, in 1992, I was diagnosed legally blind in both eyes, and it has been a progressive journey. Like any other disability, they're on a spectrum, every single one. And so my journey has been constantly changing over the last 30 plus years. I also have ADHD and epilepsy. So sometimes I forget my thoughts. I might repeat myself. I might jump around in topic a little bit. So if this happens, just be mindful that my brain works a little bit different than a lot of people's do. And as small business owners, we are going to be working with and serving diverse persons just across the board. So you will meet people who are neurodivergent in your life. And so hopefully that this presentation will give you a little bit more of an understanding about the diverseness of people living with disabilities. Communication is one of the biggest things that we can do in understanding and bridging gaps. So anybody can be born with a disability, or you can acquire one later in life through accident, illness, for no known reasons, genetics, and just the natural process of aging. By the time we all hit 80 years old, we're all going to need some accommodations and some assistance. So if we together can learn how to work together by the time we hit 80 years old, hopefully our life is more, or the world is more accessible to make our lives easier. Disabilities can be permanent, episodic, or temporary. I'm going to ask you all just a few questions to ponder and think about. Have you ever broken ankle, torn a muscle or a ligament in your knee, sprained your ankle, stubbed your toe where you couldn't walk for a bit? Have you ever pulled a muscle in your back or had a pinched sciatic nerve? Have you ever cut or burnt your hand where you couldn't use it? Flown in an airplane where you couldn't hear? Had dental work where you maybe couldn't speak or drink through a straw? These are all temporary disabilities. So the majority of us have all experienced one or more of these. So I ask you, during that time that you were experiencing your disabilities, did you find ways to navigate through that time? Did you maybe use crutches when you broke or sprained your ankle? Did you figure out how to use your other hand if you cut or burnt your most dominant hand? Did you just have to deal when you had a migraine or a pulled muscle in your back? Now, did you feel like a different person when that happened to you? Or was that task or that experience just harder at the time. Most of us living with disabilities are just like you, only we navigate life different all the time, and life is always harder for us. But we've learned to adapt, and it has become our normal. So during that time when you were having a harder time, was it nice when people were kind to you? When they were helpful? Maybe when they held the door for you if you were using crutches, or, got you something if you pulled a muscle in your back and helped you there. So being kind to each other really can make a difference, especially in the lives of people living with disabilities, because our lives are always harder. And lots of times people don't realize the spectrum of what disability really is. I'll share vision loss because that's my lived experience and the spectrums. So don't ever assume what somebody may or may not see, because it's different for everybody. If you're to take your fingers and put them directly in front of your eyes and look around the room, that's somebody who doesn't have central vision. So that's similar to what I have. I have a friend who has retinal pigmentosis. So if you're looking through toilet paper rolls and you shrink that hole, that's another form of vision. It could be blurry, it could be blotchy. Some people might not be able to see far away or close up. So many things can change how somebody who has vision loss sees. It could be lighting, it could be how tired your eyes are, color contrast, distance, shape, size. All of those things are variants in what people can and cannot see. So it is a complete spectrum. And that's the same with deafness or any type of other disability or abilities. They vary from person to person. So no two people or their experience is going to be exactly the same, even if they have the very same diagnosis. It's just like if two of you broke your ankle, it's the same thing, but your experiences are going to be very different. Not everybody has the same support systems at home, work, or school. Not everybody has the finances to purchase tools and devices that make life easier. Not everybody has the opportunity for training and rehabilitation. And not everybody is at the same acceptance in their journey. For myself, when I was diagnosed when I was 20, I did not want this diagnosis. Who wants it? And I struggled for the first 24 years of my journey. I did not want to identify as somebody with a disability. There was no way I was going to use a white cane because I didn't want to draw attention to myself. I didn't want people staring at me. And I didn't want people accusing me of faking it because I had a little bit of sight. So there were so many barriers in how I was worried about what other people thought and how other people would treat me because I had a disability. So it prevented me from participating fully in life, my own lived experience, not just the built environment or the social attitudes that are barriers for us, but also ourselves sometimes are the barriers. So in 2015, I met two women who were confident and blind, and I had never experienced that in my life. I didn't want to know people who were blind. I didn't feel I needed to get connected. But when I did, it really changed my whole world. I ended up traveling to Louisiana for 9 months and wore a blindfold for all of my training to learn how to navigate life blind by taking away my weakest sense. It taught me how to maximize my other senses. So then when I took the blindfold off, that little tiny bit of sight I had became an asset to me, allowing me to navigate life now only different than I did when I had sight. And learning how to navigate life different, which everybody who has a disability has had to do, it teaches us how to live our best life when we learn how to do it only different than we did before. Communication is huge. And often I'm going to share some experiences for you if ever you have anybody who comes into your store or who works for you who has low vision or who is blind. These are some really helpful tips that you can do to take away and use in the future that creates inclusion for those of us who have low vision or who are blind. So I want you to envision a very foggy day where you can see the shadows of a person, but you can't see their intentions. The majority of us who are legally blind, again, we're all various degrees, our vision is not reliable and not always useful. So when we see those shadows, because only 15% of us are totally blind, the rest of us do have some vision. So when we're seeing somebody and not their intentions, it can be very unsettling for us. And often people are quiet, and it's because they don't know what to say, or they don't know what to do, or they don't want to offend, or they don't want to look stupid that they don't know. So when you say hello to somebody who has low vision or who is blind, some really awesome things happen. For one, you let me know that you're there with your hello. Two, that makes me mindful not to trip you with my cane, because I know you're there. And you also then open up the opportunity for me to ask you a question or ask for help if I needed it. But you didn't insinuate I needed it by asking me. Your hello is taken as that smile, that nod, that friendly gesture that we miss out on all the time. Sighted people are giving them each other all the time. So your verbal hello is taken as that smile, that nod, that friendly gesture that we miss out on. If you happen to know my name and you approach me, it's helpful if you say, "Hi, Gina," because I don't always know people are talking to me. So if you all closed your eyes right now and I picked somebody to talk to, do we know who we're talking to? So when you use my name or you use the person's name, you then are letting them know that you are speaking to them. And if you come back and you say, "Hi, Gina, it's Calvin," I then know who I'm speaking to, because we can't always identify people by voice alone. Lots of times there's surrounding sounds. You know, if you're outside, there's traffic, kids playing, there's just other noises. If you're inside and you're in an office, there's coffee brewing, photocopiers happening, maybe music, conversations. And that takes away our ability to identify people's voices, even the ones we know very well. This isn't just for blindness, also for people who are hard of hearing or deaf. It takes away the surrounding sounds from what they're able to hear as well. If you're going to be communicating with somebody who maybe has a speech disability, if they come into your business, or you're out in the community, or maybe they're deaf or hard of hearing, it's really important that you always look at the person that you're speaking to and speak at the same tone and volume that you're always speaking, because a lot of people who are hard of hearing or who have speech disabilities read our lips. And when we slow down, it changes how our mouth looks, and it can make it more difficult for some people to read our lips. Don't cover your mouth and don't turn your head, because when you do that, again, people can't read your lips. If you're unsure, just ask the person, is this, am I speaking loud enough? But often the person will tell you, "Can you speak to my right ear? Can you slow down? Can you speak up?" Usually the person can indicate that to you. You can always communicate in other formats. You can ask them if you would like to write or if you'd like to text. Those are other ways of of communicating. And I encourage everybody to learn the alphabet in sign language. I teach that in my youth program, because we are all going to be 80 one day, and a quarter of us is going to have hearing loss. And my mom and my aunties are part of that group, and they often forget their hearing aids, and they often get frustrated. And I say to kids, when we learn the alphabet in sign language and we learn sign language, you can communicate with your teacher without interrupting the rest of the class. Teachers can talk to their kids during lockdown situations. I say to the kids, you can talk to your friends underwater or at concerts or at sporting events. We're all going to have dental work, be very ill at some point in our lives. Anyone can have a stroke, or, speech can change. And so just knowing a little bit of sign language in our future could be very beneficial. So if you're able to learn the alphabet in sign language and have that as a little tool in your back pocket, anybody that comes into your business or that you interact with, you can just make it like you're typing on a typewriter. That is saying, "I'm going to finger spell," and then you spell out your words, and then they're going to finger spell back to you and not make it overwhelming with a bunch of signs that you won't recognize. So I highly recommend, as a little tool and creates more accessibility for people, is just to learn the alphabet in sign language. sometimes accessibility is more than a parking spot, a bathroom, and a ramp. And sometimes people aren't aware of all of the things that are available and out there that provide more accessibility and accommodations in their workspace. So I'm going to maybe use an office, a small office as an example, maybe 2 or 3 employees. Dimmer switches are a really great thing if you can install them, and having a dimmer switch, because overhead lighting can be really hard on people's eyes, especially if you have sunlight coming in the room, you're looking on a screen all the time. Individuals being able to choose the lighting that works best for them is an accessibility feature. So if you can't turn off the overhead lighting or dim it, having a small lamp on your desk so that you can control your lighting. Noise can also be something that prevents people from being able to work to their best. And so being able to offer maybe some noise canceling headphones, something like that can help make their life easier. Having that communication with your staff is so important. Like, communication, I'm going to say it a few times, is the number one thing that is going to break down those barriers. Because when you know what somebody needs, it takes that guesswork out. If you make yourself available to have these hard conversations, you're going to learn about everyone's strengths and stretches and how we can utilize those and have the most productive, business that there is. If I was working, or when I was working for a different organization, one thing I can't do is the computer. It's very hard for me. I can't see, but I'm really strong in talking to people. And somebody else who likes data entry can take over that little bit of data, and then I can take over some of maybe the phone calls and the interactions and the plannings. We can have a much more oiled, team when we work together and we share. Businesses have been making accommodations for people this whole time. It's not just to have to make new accommodations for people with disabilities. Some of us have grief. We lose somebody. We might need a little bit more time off. We might need a little bit of a quieter space just to kind of navigate those grounds. Some of us have an injury for a little while, and maybe, we need to have a higher chair or a higher table. Some of us get pregnant and have a baby, so having a bar in the washroom to help you get up. These are all things that not only help people with disabilities, but they help people in general. Lots of times employers think that if I hire somebody with a disability, there's going to be a lot of cost involved in that. And that is not true. Sometimes there is cost involved, and there are organizations out there that have grants for accessibility, for helping to create a more accessible building space. So, be mindful that if you're going to make some changes and some accommodations, there is funding out there for you to help with that. Lots of times people who are navigating life different and have disabilities already have a lot of the tools that they need. Example, most of us who don't see have screen readers already. It's not always something that you're going to have to purchase, but it's just something that you have to learn to be aware of, and how you can work with and understand why somebody is navigating the way that they do. And if you have questions about a person, please ask that person, because no two people are the same. None of our experiences, our confidence, our abilities, none of it's the same. We're all different. And accommodations are going to be different for everybody too. Even for the same person changing jobs are going to need different accommodations, because all the space is built different. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought, and that happens. If somebody has a question for me right now, that would be helpful for me to kind of regain my thoughts. This is one of those moments I'm having that I'm like, it's gone.
Gina, we were talking about accessibility in office spaces. Is there something that you just said about asking the person and making accommodations based on their tools? Is there something specific, like a way to ask those questions professionally and courteously, I guess is what I'm trying to say. How do I go to you and say, what accommodations do you need? Is it as simple as that?
It can be as simple as that. And if when you are doing your job postings, if you put into your job postings that you welcome diversity, that you're willing to communicate, you're willing to, have those conversations, it's going to be easier. When you make yourself open to, somebody having a disability, either disclosing, because a lot of times people don't want to disclose because of that judgment. But if from the beginning you make yourself open, we're all going to feel more comfortable in sharing with you, what it is that we need. It's important to make sure that you always ask somebody first if they would like help, because not everybody needs it. It might look like somebody needs help to you because they're doing it different, but different isn't wrong. It's just different. So always ask first, would you like some help? If they say no, no doesn't mean they're not going to need help next time. No just means they're good right now. There's been times I've been out walking and somebody's asked me if I needed help, and I'm like, no, thanks, I'm good. And they're like, I was just trying to help. And I was like, I didn't ask for help. So sometimes people don't ask and they just jump in and help, and that can also be problematic. If somebody does say yes, they need help, your second question needs to be, how can I help you? Because again, no two people need help exactly the same way. So if you can remember those two questions, that's one of the takeaways I really hope that you take away from here, because no matter, what abilities somebody has, if you ask them first, may I help you? And then ask them, how can I help you? Everybody's treated with respect. Are you going to garner an unfriendly response sometimes from people? Absolutely you are. Do you garner an unfriendly response from able-bodied people? Sometimes, yes, you do. We don't know what somebody else's journey is, but if we can be kind and be respectful, however anybody else reacts is not on you, it's on them. And just that being kind really does make a huge difference. In the office, we were talking about in the office and accessibilities and being able to ask, asking what some accommodations, might be. They are able to easily let you know what they would need. I'm going to ask you, I don't know who here and what type of business you have, but being mindful of the accommodations that you could provide to maybe service users who come in. We don't know who is going to come in, who is going to use our services. And one thing that a lot of people don't think about is the chairs they have in the waiting room. Do they all have arms? Do they not have arms? I went into a chiropractic office. It was a beautiful office. He even had the bed that came straight up and you walked on and it laid you down. But in his office, he had 4 black chairs with no arms. So I did say to him, I said, my mom would never be able to come here because she could never get up out of the seat because there's no arms. You are a chiropractic office, and I know that when people have hip surgeries or bad backs, it's hard to get up from these chairs that are quite low. So being flexible in being able to offer some other accommodations that a lot of people don't think about is just even the seating of what people can have. Aesthetics isn't always what's really important. Accessibility is. And people talk. Right there with that gentleman at the chiropractic office, right there, he's not going to get a referral from me just because of the chair. But if he had those options, that'll be in the back of my head for either myself later in life or for people that I know or meet. That place has gone out of their way to try and be, as accessible as possible, because it is more than a parking spot, a bathroom, and a ramp. A suggestion I have, if you are unable to make your physical space accessible for people who use mobility devices, so we'll use the washroom as an example, it's not accessible. Something you can do that will really help is by finding out whereabouts in the vicinity of where you work has an accessible washroom. So maybe 3 doors down is the coffee shop and their washroom is accessible. If you could communicate with that coffee shop and say, hey, is it okay if my client, or my service user uses your washroom because I don't have an accessible washroom. At least I can't make it that way. When you do that, you're also providing accessibility for that person using the mobility device, because when you got to go, you got to go. And if you have to go downstairs, use the elevator, and then you've got to go into every single store to find somebody to ask, you just being able to provide that one little, just 3 doors down at Starbucks, their washrooms available, is a huge help. So, that helps create that accessibility as well. There are tons of tools that each business as an individual could have on hand that creates that accessibility and accommodation. I did a presentation for a little boutique, somebody starting up their business, and they had a little section of clothing to try on. And when I did my presentation, I brought a few tools with me. This is a long-handled shoehorn, and a dressing stick on one side. So if somebody needs to take their shoes off, or they need help putting on their jacket, you have a tool that they could use. This is a sock pull. You put your sock over the edge, your foot slides in, and then this pulls off and it puts your sock on for you. There's zipper pulls and button hooks. These few items create accessibility. A lot of us who have mobility challenges don't always carry these tools around, so we can't go and shop as easily as an able-bodied person. But if a business has these few little tools on hand, you just provided me with a really great experience. I can go shopping with my friends anytime and be like, hey, we can go there because they have these things that make my life easier. All of these little tools are under $100. And people talk. Often people with physical disabilities pick out clothes, they have to go home, they try them on, they don't fit, they have to return them. It's then making that person's life even harder. When these small little shifts that we can do within our business can make things easier for people. And we all want life to be easier. We're all going to be 80 one day. We all don't want to have to struggle. So when we can learn and come together and communicate with each other and support one another during our journey, no matter what it is, life is just better. And when it's hard already, people being kind and doing these small little shifts makes life easier. And these shifts are action, and action creates change. So really understanding diversity and what diversity is. It's that we are all different from each other in our abilities, our confidence, our preferences, likes, dislikes, strengths and stretches. We're all different. So asking each individual what it is that they may need or how you can support, then for that person. Really important, because we are all different. Sometimes people are concerned about hiring somebody with a disability because maybe they're going to need more time off. You're going to need to make more accommodations. Again, I spoke about earlier, people have had grief, people have been pregnant, they've had to have time off. Sometimes people with disabilities need more time off, but having options of being able to work from home, that's a real accessibility, factor for some people if they can work from home. Also, there we go again. Accessibility, working from home, being kind. Somebody, can you jog my memory? If not, that's okay.
No, Gina, it's Bernice again. So
Hi.
I'm going to pull you off a different sidetrack. Is there some language that we need to, because you're talking about communication and language being really important. Is there some words that I need to avoid when I'm asking questions and some words that I should be using? And I noticed that you say low vision or blind. And I think I probably would have used language like visually impaired.
Oh, good question. And thank you for bringing that up. Language is our most powerful tool. We can lift people up with our words, or we can knock people down. And lots of times, as our world is shifting and things are shifting and we're looking for inclusion, our words matter. So we used to, oh, I got it here. Everybody's probably familiar with this sign. Many years, we've called it handicap. It was handicap parking, handicap washroom. Handicap actually is an advantage in golf. We don't use the term handicap anymore. We use the term accessible. And it's accessible for anybody who needs it. If it's that mom pushing the stroller and needs the larger washroom, or the delivery man delivering the goods needs the ramp. So it's accessible. We've been saying handicap for a long time, and it takes some time to break those patterns and habits of things that we're used to saying. But when we are mindful and we do say it, we correct ourselves. I said handicap again. I meant accessible. So I myself, for 27 years, said I'm visually impaired. I said it 5 to 20 times a day. Excuse me, I'm visually impaired. What bus is coming? Excuse me, I'm visually impaired. How much is this? Excuse me, I'm visually impaired. Can you tell me where to, go for this? It's the way that I introduced myself to every single person that I met. So I'm going to ask you, what is the first thing that you think of when you hear the word impaired? What's the second thing you think of? Or the third? It's not positive. Some people might say drunk, some people broken, something's wrong with them. When I decided, after 27 years of saying, I'm partially sighted, I have low vision, I'm legally blind, I'm blind, I started to feel better about myself, because words are powerful. And when you're repeatedly telling yourself or talking about others as not being good enough, or something's wrong with them, when you have low expectations of people, they're going to have low expectations of themselves. So changing my wording, and it took me 6 months to break that, because I've been saying it for so many years. But every time I said it out loud, I said, no, I meant I have low vision. Because that demonstrates to others that we are shifting our language. The deaf community prefer deaf and hard of hearing. They do not like hearing impaired. But if somebody tells you that they prefer hearing impaired or visually impaired, or something that I'm sharing with you that's different, then you know for them. And it's the same like pronouns. Sometimes it's a shift. We might meet somebody and then things change and we have to learn new words or new pronouns. And sometimes we make mistakes, but we correct it and we learn and we grow together. So being mindful of those words is super powerful. If you don't know, ask.
Hi, Gina. It's Heather, and I want to tell I'm differently abled. I have a number of mobility and vision challenges, and I'm a retired teacher. And I used to do a lot in the beginning of the year, sort of talking about the difference between fair and equal, and what's equitable with my kids.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to get parents even to shift away from saying, my son is autistic. And I said, no, he has autism.
Yeah.
Because if you say he is autistic, that becomes an adjective that describes and labels the person, as opposed to he's neurodivergent and that's just how his brain works.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so it's for anything. You try not to use whatever the challenge is as an adjective to describe the person. It's just something. It's like saying I used to have red hair, now I have gray hair.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Yeah, there's also person first and identity first. And sometimes people are not sure what to say, or, I encourage people, if you don't know and you're talking about somebody, use person first. I wouldn't want my friend, to say my blind friend Gina. I'd rather my friend say my friend Gina who's blind. But there are some people who want identity first. And if they tell you, then you use that for that person. But I say you will offend the least amount of people by using person first when you don't know. Does anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Gina. It's Michelle. Excuse
Hi.
me. I'm thinking about what you were talking about earlier around learning sign language. Is there sign language that is universal, or is there, are there different, I guess, versions of sign language that we can learn, or is there one that's really the best to
Yeah.
learn?
Sign language is like any other language. It's going to be different in different countries. In North America, we use American Sign Language, ASL. So if you are wanting to learn sign language, please make sure you're looking up ASL, because that's what we use here in North America. England is very different. The alphabet here is done with one hand in ASL, but in BSL, British Sign Language, it's used with two hands, which I found really interesting. So it's just like different languages, it's different. And figuring out, there are some signs that are similar that you're able to figure out, just like words. That communication is you're still able to kind of get by if you can kind of do that with your English as well. But yeah, thanks, Michelle. It is ASL in Canada that we learn. If anybody really wants to learn and you want to connect with me, I have some sheets. I have accurate sign language charts, because some of them aren't accurate because they're giving the demonstration of the letter sideways so you see it better, but all of the signs are directly at you, towards you. So if sign language is something that you are interested in and you reach out to me, I can send you a whole bunch of little forms and easy explanations, and also some YouTube and Facebook pages to follow if that's something you were interested in doing.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. A couple other little things that you can do having a business. If somebody is blind and they come into your store, or they need to sign something, sometimes we need to sign something. If you fold it on the line and you open it up, it gives me a tactile in order to sign. This is also an index or a signature guide. It's the same size as a credit card, so it just fits in where the credit cards are. And then you can place the open section as to where I would need to sign. It's also great to have if you need to sign on passports or anything like that, because they always give you a specific size box. So for this, you can just take an old credit card, you can cut out the numbers, and then this is something that you could have available for people who maybe have a harder time seeing and need to sign something. Something as simple as a pen. What pens do you have if you have people coming in to sign anything? Do you have a click pen, or you have one that you have to pull off? A lidded pen is more difficult for some people who have dexterity. Often they don't have something on it, like this has a little clip, so it won't roll. So when you take this off, this can roll, it can fall, people having to pick it up, harder to hold. If you have pens with lids, leave the lids off. It just makes things a little bit easier for some people of trying to fumble with it. And throw an elastic band on the end. If you throw an elastic band on the end, it's not going to roll and it's not going to fall off. So you can save somebody, having to bend down and pick up. It also becomes, they can roll it down. If you put it down a little lower, I should have had it on the other end. It's also then a bit of a grip and makes that pen a little bit thicker and a little bit easier to hold for some people who don't have dexterity in their hands. Elastic bands are they're one of my favorite tools, and I share a lot of different tips about elastic bands, and a lot of people, who have all their abilities find them helpful. Is there anybody here who kind of gets your shampoo and your conditioner confused in the bathroom because they look exactly the same? Throwing an elastic band around your shampoo, you'll never mix them up again. Sometimes medications can be hard to read, but if you put an elastic band around maybe your nighttime one, or you put 2 elastic bands around your medication that you need to take 2 pills with, it saves you from having to read. And people who have good vision have a hard time reading some of these smaller prints today. So elastic bands can be really helpful in some situations.
They're also very good on glasses, in like drinking glasses in the summertime when you get all the condensation and they can be quite slippery. They're very good for people who need that extra tactile sense and to help them hold on to it.
Absolutely. And it's something that I suggest when in the emergency rooms too, to the staff and the doctors and nurses, is giving a glass of water with an elastic band, because it's something tangible and it's not noisy, but it's something to play with, to touch. A lot of times people are anxious in emergency rooms, and something as simple as an elastic band can, really help calm somebody. And it also helps those of us who can't see identify our glass being around the edge. That's just another little identifying, I know it's mine. Yeah, thank you for that, around the water glass, because I didn't think of that. I had thought about it at the hospitals. So thanks, Heather. Yeah, so elastic bands I have found have been amazing. When I go grocery shopping, I'm fortunate there's an app called Be My Eyes. I connect to a live agent. They're all volunteers. So if I'm in the grocery store and I haven't been able to find somebody to give me a hand, and maybe I need a can of chicken noodle soup, I'll connect to my Be My Eyes live agent. I will hold the camera towards the cans. I'll put my hand out straight, and they'll be to the left, down one row. There you go. I have different colored elastic bands. So I throw a yellow one around my soup. I throw a green one around my veggies. I throw an orange one around my fruit. And I throw a pink one around my beans, because I like to make chili. So when I open up my cupboard, I don't have to look at all of the different cans. I just have to look at the 3 green ones because I need a can of corn. So that's just something I do to make my life easier. Those of us who navigate with disabilities and navigate life different find ways to, get through it. And one thing that has been really helpful for me is getting connected with people who are going through the same thing that I'm going through, because we learn from each other. We learn these tips, these tricks that make our life easier. And if we can make our life easier, it allows us to enjoy more of the day when we're not struggling. So those of us living with disabilities aren't able to meet you where you're at, but you can absolutely meet us where we're at. I'm going to use just a few examples, again, vision loss, because it's my journey, but, looking at a big pink hydrangea bush with your eyes, it's pretty. When I go up to the bush, I feel how big it is. I touch the petals, I smell them, I hear the bees buzz. So I see that bush. I only see it different than somebody who's looking at it with their eyes. So saying to my friend, come experience it like I do. We go for a walk in the forest, touch the bark on the tree, smell it, touch all the different leaves, smell all the different flowers. It just gives you a different experience, and it helps to normalize our differences. I went a fun thing. I'm quite an adventurer. I love trying new things. I like adrenaline. And I had a friend say to me last month, she's like, hey, Gina, do you want to go axe throwing and dagger throwing? So I'm like, sure, why not? So my husband and I and a couple of my friends went to a place called Axe and Grind here in Victoria. And I put my blindfold on before throwing, because the little bit of sight I have is a distraction, and it takes away from my concentration. It isn't an asset to me in something like axe throwing. So I put my blindfold on. I was shown how to throw the axe, and then all of my friends and my husband tried it with the blindfold on. Then the staff tried it with the blindfold on, because it's a different experience. And people who have all their abilities, why not try and have a different experience? Because experiences are cool. They open our thoughts and our eyes to new ways of doing things and experiencing it and enjoying it. And all of them thought it was a really cool experience. So if you know somebody who navigates life different and you ask, how do you do that? Why do you do that? Let me try that, or can I try that? You're helping to normalize our differences. And that's just it. They're just differences. I'm just checking the time here.
Gina, did you get a bullseye?
I got 2 bullseyes. I did. One of them I got on video too. Some of them I hit the gate, yeah. The dagger though, I wasn't as confident with the dagger, because when I have to throw the dagger, it's pointing outwards. So I'm going to use a pencil. So the blade is pointing towards you. I have to bring it back over my shoulder. And I was really nervous about the point of the dagger coming so close to my head. So it was awkward and a little intimidating. I threw it probably 3 or 4 times and then just ended up going back to the axe because I just felt more confident. I'm glad I tried the dagger, but for me, it just wasn't, it wasn't the best. I did stick the dagger in the board, but by the handle, not the blade. I don't know how that happened, but the handle was in the board. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions for me?
You can write them in the chat if you don't want to speak, and I can read them out, or you can just unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like.
Gina, it's Bernice again. You talked a lot about visible disabilities, things that we could recognize from the outside in. Can you spend a minute just talking about invisible disabilities and the importance of this conversation for everyone and not just those that we recognize? And I would see you with the dark glasses and the white cane, and I would go, oh, okay, there's something there. But there's a lot of things that we don't see. Could you spend a minute to that?
Yeah, absolutely. According to the World Health Association, 1 in 6 of us have a disability, but 9 out of 10 disabilities are non-apparent. I use the terms non-apparent and apparent over invisible or hidden because there's nothing to hide, and it's just something that you can't see and it's non-apparent. So most disabilities are non-apparent. They could be neurological, they could be chemical, people with sensitivities, they could be learning differences, dyslexia, ADHD, dysgraphia. There's so many learning differences that are out there that a lot of people are unaware of. If you notice that somebody, mental health, that's another one that is really big. Illnesses, diabetes, a lot of things that prevent people from participating fully are not apparent. And being mindful that we don't want to disclose a lot of times when it's not apparent because of the judgment that goes around. And so when you're mindful in your description of being welcoming of all abilities and having that communication, we really are able to thrive when people are understanding and compassionate with our differences and not judging us. The society's barriers and the attitudes and the biases, for me, I think are the biggest barriers because people just don't understand, because they don't want to offend, they don't know what to say or do. And so making yourself open that people can talk to you, and also being open to provide those accommodations that somebody might need. It's really important and really helpful. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you certainly did. Thank you.
Okay, great.
And Gina, it's Heather again.
Hi, Heather.
That's a big part of why I do that workshop the first week of school with my students when I was still teaching about fair and equitable, because now with so many different levels of academic ability in a classroom, you'll have students say, well, how come their worksheet's so much easier than mine? And so if I do that, spend that time on fair and equal, and I often use glasses because I wear glasses. So I said, well, if I was to treat you all equally, I need to wear glasses. So if I would make everybody wear glasses, but you don't all need glasses, but the people who need them should have them, because that makes learning easier for them.
I
And so important to that concept. And I also teach the most powerful word in the English language is yet.
yeah.
You know, so don't tell me you can't do that math lesson. You just can't do it yet. And it's a total mindset shift. And it's very empowering. And the kids who sort of run that negative tape in their head stop doing it. So if you can't do something, for me, I can't, my alumni association does a harbor cruise. The ship is not accessible. So I've pointed out to them the second year in a row, I would love to go and see some of my old friends from, 40 years ago, but I can't go, not because I'm mobility challenged. I can't go because the ship is not accessible.
Yeah.
And so you have to you point those things out and hope that businesses can get with the program.
Yeah, I agree. I have a youth program, and youth are our future. And kids want to do good. They want to learn. They want to know. They want to understand. And I provide hands-on activities for the kids to gain a better understanding, especially with some of the non-apparent disabilities, like dyslexia, having them read some things in different forms because no two people's experience is the same. Because often what I hear is, kids can be mean and snicker and laugh and joke when somebody's taking longer or having a hard time. And once they get to have that experience of what somebody is experiencing, it creates compassion and empathy. We problem solve of things that we could do that could help make that task easier for somebody who's navigating life different, and when the kids realize that, wow, if I had to read everything all day like that, how hard and tiring it is. It's really wonderful to see that there's more inclusion in that classroom because that barrier has been broken down with communication. That it's not that they're not smart, it's just that their brain and their eyes don't interpret things the same way. I also can offer some, Braille. If you read Braille, you can read 170 to 220 words a minute. Would Braille be helpful for somebody whose eyes and brain are not working well together? Also it could be something very good for somebody who maybe has ADHD or different learning differences or autism, and we need that touch. We need to be doing something. It could be another form of a new tool or technique that can make their life easier. It's thinking outside of the box of what can work and what might not work. And one thing might work for somebody and not somebody else. But you were talking about kids, and really they're so impressionable, and every single one of them deserves to have their very best learning experience. Every single person deserves to have their very best work experience, their very best life experiences, even if they're different. Kids, that's my favorite program. I do love it. I also do have a seniors program where I bring the tools and devices that make life easier, because as we get older and our abilities change, it's a constant journey for us. It's not like now we've found something that works, but a little while later that thing doesn't work anymore. And because we are experts in our own disability, but we're not experts in the whole journey. And every journey is going to be different. Every person's acceptance is going to be different. Some people don't want to accept the fact that their life is changing. So with my seniors program, I bring the tools and devices that can make life easier. So this is something that I'm going to share with you. It's called the swivel cushion. It's also really good if you have a business to have for a chair. So somebody can sit on it and easily turn if their back and hips don't work or they have less mobility. And getting in and out of a car, the same sort of thing. There's tools and devices that can help, create more independence and accessibility. And if you are constantly driving somebody around who maybe has mobility, lower mobility.
Gina, I'm going to interrupt for 2 seconds. I have
Yep.
to step out. This has been phenomenal, and I really want more. You have so many wisdom, tips, and ideas and suggestions. So thank you. But unfortunately, I have to step out for another class. Thank you.
Hey, Gina.
Yep.
We have enough time for about one more question.
Oh, okay. I
So,
didn't realize we were that far along. Yes, please.
so if anyone has another question, feel free to unmute and just ask it.
It's Michelle, Gina. It's not necessarily a question, but just a comment and observation. I love that you said that, youth are the future, and it's important to teach youth, and they're wanting to learn, and they're wanting to do better, be better, for everybody overall. But I also feel very strongly that as adults in kids' worlds, that we are the role models, and that us learning and us growing and us shifting is also really important to help them shift and grow too. So thank you. This has been wonderful. This has been a really great and insightful session. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks.
Awesome. So Gina, is there any closing remarks you'd like to make before I close it out?
Yeah, I'm just so grateful that you took the time today to come and learn with me and share some of your experiences, ask me some questions that you've been curious about. Really grateful for that. And, by just showing up, you want to make that shift, and shift is action, and action is change. If you would like more information, you can reach out to me via my website or email, which I'm not sure if it's on the screen, but if you have any questions, please do reach out. My website it's diverseabilities.ca, and thank you for joining.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. So I want to thank you guys all for coming. Round of applause for Gina. She absolutely crushed it today. Like you said, check her out, diverseabilities.ca, or you can email her, gina.diverseabilities@gmail.com. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you, Kelvin and Sam, for all your help.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everybody.
No problem. Good
Thank
day,
you.
everybody.
Take
Bye.
care.